Hello my friends and welcome back to another video, and again another revamped series where in order we'll be going through all the Númenorian rulers for the Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series. I had another series before where I looked at each ruler individually, but I thought it would be much more effective to go through the kings and queens in this format. So this is part 1 where we look at the Númenorian kings from the year 32 of the Second Age to the year 740 of the Second Age. So to begin our journey, let's look at the first king, Elros Tar-Minyatar. Elros was the brother of Elrond, and at the end of the Second Age, both brothers had important decisions to make. Due to their family heritage, they were able to decide to permanently become an elf or one of the Edain, aka a man. Elrond chose to stay among the firstborn, the elves, while Elros decided to choose the gift of men, which meant a mortal life and to become a man. After the War of Wrath, the men who had fought and contributed in the war were given a reward by the Valar, which was a large magnificent island located on the western region of the Great Sea, and this was to be the significant realm of men in Arda. This island of course was Númenor, and Elros by the Valar was given the gift of long life and much longer than the average Númenorian, and he was the king that led his people, the Edain, across the sea using the Star of Elendil, which was from his father, and finally they reached Númenor. Also, the gifts from the Valar did not stop there, and the Númenorians were given longer lifespans, and especially the line of Elros, aka the royal line, had the longest lives out of all the Númenorians. Once Elrond and his men had settled on the island, in the year 32 of the Second Age, Elros was crowned as the first king of Númenor, and then begun the tradition which lasted for many centuries of taking upon his name in Quenya, which was Tar-Minyatar instead of Elros. To add to the history and might of Númenor and his family line, Elros brought back the Ring of Barahir, Thingol's sword, and the Axe of Tor, along with many more artifacts. During Elros's reign, Númenor was constructed and grew as a kingdom across the island, including the construction of the capital city Armenelos, where the famous citadel and tower was also constructed. Elros had 4 children, his eldest being Vardimir Nolimon, who was technically his heir, Manwëdil, Atankla, and a daughter called Tindomiel also followed. Elros ruled for many centuries, and Númenor prospered during its early days, with the foundations being built for a great but powerful nation. Despite having a naturally long life, Elros was not immortal, and after ruling Númenor for 410 years, he died in the year 442 of the Second Age, at the age of 500. Elros ruled from the year 32 to 400 of the Second Age. His legacy would be that he was the father of Númenor and led his people across the sea to establish the kingdom, and during its early days watched it grow. Now, Elros was personally by the Valar given the gift of long life, even longer than the Númenorians themselves, which meant that when he died, his children would have been fairly old, as Elros had lived such a long life. Therefore, Elros' eldest child Tar-Vardimir, who was born in the year 61 of the Second Age, was 381 years old at the time of his father's death, and when the scepter of Númenor would be passed on to him, and he would become the new king. Wisely, he rejected it, and he wisely passed the scepter on immediately to the eldest of his own children, Tar-Amendil, who would technically be the third ruler of Númenor, even though being the second king, as Tar-Vardimir in the history books was still technically counted as the second ruler, as he nominally ruled for a single year. Tar-Vardimir died in the year 471 of the Second Age. Tar Armendil was the third king of Númenor and ruled for 148 years and was born in the year 192 of the Second Age. He was the grandson of Elros Tar Minyatar as well. Nothing much or significant happened during Tar Armendil's reign except for the fact that he started the tradition that Númenorian rulers would relinquish the scepter of Númenor, which meant that they would no longer be king a few years before their death. This tradition continued for many centuries and many kings and queens followed suit. Tar Armendil had two sons, Elendil, who was to be the heir, and Eriandor, also with a daughter called Meiran. He ruled from the year 442 of the Second Age to the year 590 of the Second Age, and consequently died in the year 603 at the age of 411 years old. In the year 590 of the Second Age, Tar Elendil became the fourth king of Númenor and ruled for 150 years. His reign was most recognizable for the fact that it was the first time the Númenorians had made contact with Middle-earth and physically left Númenor. In fact, Viantor, the captain of the king's ships, was the first Númenorian to set sail from Númenor to Middle-earth and then come back successfully. In the year 600 of the Second Age, Viantor arrived at the Grey Heavens and met Gil-galad, the High King of the Elves, in Lindon. Viantor's daughter Almarion married Tar Elendil's eldest son and heir Tar Menelder. Interestingly, Tar Elendil had two oldest daughters, Silmarillion and Isilme. But due to the law in Númenor at the time that only men could become kings, Tar Elendil, the youngest child, Erimion, who would take the name Tar Menelder, became the heir even though he was the third child. Also, Tar Elendil gave the ring of Barahir to Silmarillion instead of his heir Tar Menelder, and this pivotal choice over many generations allowed Aronja to have this heirloom during his coronation in Gondor after the events of the Lord of the Rings and defeat of Sauron. Tar Elendil's reign was the beginning of the first period of change in Númenor, due to under his reign there was the first contact between Númenor and Middle-earth. But it was only the first glimpse of change in Númenor, which wouldn't actually occur under his reign but his immediate ancestors, and we will find out about this in part 2. In part 1, we have covered the years between the year 32 of the Second Age to the year 740, and look out for part 2, I'll be releasing that soon or in the near future. So yes, we have just seen the first parts and first years of Númenor. I doubt these parts we will actually see in the show, but it's always good to have context on the kingdom. So thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, but until the next video my friends, goodbye.